Yo, 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 yo. What's up? It's Gary. I'm the G in G&C Sports Talk. What we do it for the culture, by the culture, because we are the culture. Number one sports podcast. Why? Because our mama said so. Welcome to the second episode edition, whatever you want to call it, from a fan's perspective. I'm working on this, tweaking it, so I won't make y'all raise y'all right hand just yet. But I will say it because it's kind of clean. I think it's clean. I think it's clean. Y'all gonna like it. Let me know. Let me know in the comments what you think of the potential oath we might be saying here in a few. Right? Here we go. This is a place where passion meets pettiness. And every take is straight from the heart and said with our whole chest. No fluff, just raw. This is a fan's perspective. What y'all think? I'm messing with it. I'm messing with it. Y'all might have, I don't know. I'm messing with it. Yeah, y'all might be raising y'all right hand here in a couple episodes. I don't know. I'm messing with it. Anyway, thank you for tuning in. Once again, this is a fan's perspective. Something I'm tackling right now on my own. We'll see if we can get my brother on board. But I am giving you this particular thing to talk about something that comes up every year in the NFL. MVP, right? MVP is most valuable player. Has a lot of definitions, connotations, whatever it may be. I'm going to do my best to sum that up for you, right? I just want to see if I can, make it a little clearer. And we'll go ahead and get started, right? Got a few questions that I'm going to ask myself. Something that I came up with just to honestly see what we can do, right? I got to make sure I do the other part that I said I would do when I started this here thing. Well, me and my brother started, but start off as a blog. Different episode, different day. What does MVP stand for? I believe I just answered it, but I'll go ahead and answer it once again. MVP stands for most valuable player. This is an award in the NFL. In a lot of sports, it may have a different name. But right now, we're going to talk about the NFL because, in my opinion, NBA, MLB, NHL, MLS, all of these things have MVPs. They may have different criteria. It may be the same criteria. I do believe that it is all undefined when you really think about it. So it's most valuable player, right? Used to mean, from what I see it as, the most valuable player, no matter your position, right? Mostly went to skill position. And for all intents and purposes, I believe it was much more structured than even back then. Like, you could be the best player on the defensive side of the ball back then. They hadn't been like that in quite a while. It usually goes to an offensive player nowadays, and also mainly a quarterback. And it's not supposed to be a quarterback award. I got a couple things that can maybe sum it up a little bit more. This is deemed for the players that have like the best performance, right? Statistical wise, impact wise, wins wise, all of that stuff. One thing that I did want to address is quarterback wins. You ever heard any sports talk radio, podcast, turn the TV to one of the sports channels? We ain't saying none of them until we get on there. You ever turn it to any like sports channel and pass by it, right? You hear them say that quarterback wins is not a quarterback stat, right? If it's not a quarterback stat, then why is it when the loss happens, you blame the quarterback more than you do any other position, whether you have a terrible offensive line, a bad defense, skill position players, receivers, running backs, tight ends, don't catch the ball. Heck, you might not even have them, right? So if wins are not a quarterback stat, then why do we deem losses so impactful? I understand they have the ball in their hands a lot, but they also are not in charge of the front office of getting a good team around them. They're also not in charge of the other side of the ball, and they can't throw it and catch it themselves. Depending on who the quarterback is, they can, however, run it. That's it. Once again, this goes to players whose performance is deemed the most outstanding and impactful during the season of competition. Stats are something that is very important towards winning the MVP. And at the end of the episode, I will give you some of the stats that we have for this year's MVP with a few players and who is likely going to be, who it could be, and why. Right? So we all understand what MVP is, right? How should it be defined? Told you how they think of how it should be defined, right? I think impact is something that I very much so believe in. Impact being how much am I affecting whether we have a chance to win. Not if we always win, because it's very hard to go undefeated in the National Football League. But how often am I affecting the outcome of the game to win? Stats do matter. So stats definitely matter. You can't be out here going 25 touchdowns and 25 interceptions. That means you kind of even, right? Running back, you want the most yards, touchdowns included. Receiver, most yards, touchdowns included. You want that. Quarterback, you want touchdowns, yards. If you can run, you want rushing touchdowns, you want passing touchdowns. You want to be able to have a good completion percentage. But you also want to be able to affect the game also, and that's what matters. If you look at the Chiefs and Patrick Mahomes and Andy Reid, Travis Kelce, and a host of other people that they have, it may not look sexy when they win, but that's the most important thing is that they win. And if you talk to, there are some real Chiefs fans out there, right? But if you talk to a lot of bandwagoners, they're only there because Patrick Mahomes is there. And they're on this winning streak and they're becoming a dynasty, or they may already be a dynasty. So that's what you have with how the MVP is done. Lamar Jackson, 2-time MVP. Josh Allen has yet to win the MVP. Is reasons why, right? Like Josh Allen has statistically had great years. Impactful wins, maybe not, depending on how you look at it, right? But there's somebody who's had better stats than him also, right? So that goes into it. Anyway, let's go ahead and go. How should it be defined? I believe stats matter some, so we'll say 25%. I believe impact matters some. We'll go ahead and put that thing at, I don't know, 50%, right? And I also believe that how another team views you should matter. If a opposing coach has to stay up at night and think about who, what, and why, and how I'm going to stop, that means something, right? If you have players around the league, respect, that means something. And most importantly, you got your team's respect. If you're that leader, if you're that de facto person, this is why this matters. This is what should go into defining it. And you don't have to sit up there and be that vocal leader that everybody knows. You can do it and be a quiet assassin. It's very possible. I hadn't seen it that often, but it's possible. All right. Should team success be factored into the consideration of MVP? I'm going to say yes and no. Yes, it should, because you can't have a terrible record, be under 500, if you will. But you definitely can't be way under 500. That's even, right? That is 6-6, 5-5, whatever. You can't be under and be considered MVP. Not that it's your fault. Again, to me, wins are not a quarterback stat because things go into it more than how the quarterback performs. Look at the Cincinnati Bengals and Joe Burrow. Spectacular year. Spectacular year. He could honestly be the MVP if their record was better. Right? When you look at it, what team success has to do with it is you have to be able to win, because otherwise you don't have that fear factor. You don't have that thing that scares other teams. Therefore, if you're winning, if you got a winning record, they think of you differently, right? Look at Sam Darnold. I believe there's more Justin Jefferson, arguably the best receiver in the National Football League, the best receiver if you ask me. Justin Jefferson is a quarterback hit maker. He makes them look better than what they are, if you ask me. And maybe you did, maybe you didn't, but that is my perspective. See what I did there? What we have here is team success matters. That record has to be factored in. And I'm not saying you have to have the best record, but that record has to be factored into it, because otherwise it's not deemed most valuable player quality because the team isn't doing well. I understand that that's not fair, but it's also true. You can have great stats on a bad team, and that's why they have other awards: Offensive Player of the Year, Comeback Player of the Year, Defensive Player of the Year, things like that. Those awards are meant to be a little bit more unbiased. This MVP thing is just for the top echelon of the league. So yes, I do believe that it has to play a factor. Not the determining factor, but it has to be a factor. All right. Narratives and intangibles like leadership influence voting. I believe so. If you look at the three people that I'm going to talk about, and I go ahead and give you their names: Josh Allen, Saquon Barkley, Lamar Jackson. Narratives and leadership have to be a huge factor in here. I had to hold off on saying that before. So narratives and leadership. Saquon Barkley in a terrible situation with the Giants and still loved them enough to want to give them a chance to re-sign him, even though they signed their former quarterback, Daniel Jones, who is no longer with them, to a deal and did not sign him and let him walk out the door and go to a divisional rival in the Philadelphia Eagles, who is at least the most recent winner of the Super Bowl in that division. Not winner of the Super Bowl, participant in the Super Bowl. I apologize. I'm sorry. I don't know what I was thinking. Am I foreshadowing? No, I don't think so. Yes, Saquon Barkley went to the Philadelphia Eagles. And Saquon going there was a huge move, arguably one of the biggest moves in the offseason. One of the moves that shook the foundation outside of any potential draft picks that are having an impact, whether good or bad, and any other wide receiver acquisitions, any other defensive acquisitions, because this young man is still explosive and is deemed to be cold, y'all. Cold. If you hadn't watched Saquon Barkley run the ball, it is amazing how much he has impacted the game, because he's the reason why they probably won, we'll say, at least 4 or 5 of them. Running game was suspect all throughout, and then he broke it one time. So Saquon Barkley, a narrative, maybe wanting to prove something, actually happy on a competent team with a good offensive line in the Philadelphia Eagles. And also the Philadelphia Eagles needing a dynamic running back to complete that tangible, that holy trinity, if you will, of what they already have there in Jalen Hurts, AJ Brown. I know Devontae Smith is there, but we're talking about the ones that are going to get it majority of the time, the ones that they deem those impactful players. Saquon Barkley is and was one of the most impactful things that happened in this offseason, along with Derrick Henry and the Baltimore Ravens. Speaking of Baltimore Ravens, Lamar Jackson. The reason why narrative matters, because the last time we saw him, he did not look the same when they were going up against the Chiefs in the AFC Championship, so much so to where they did not score as much. He had a couple of turnovers, and he wasn't running. He was almost trying to prove that he could throw the ball and they can win with him throwing the ball, when that should not be the case. It should be, hey, I'm doing whatever I got to do to get this win. That's what matters most, right? Like, you see that usually with players, but hadn't seen it, right? So narrative being he has something to prove. He has 2 MVPs already, speaking of this conversation that we're having. And also, the only thing he's missing is a Super Bowl appearance. I will not say trophy. I will say appearance. To me, all he has to do is appear in a Super Bowl and somewhat have a good game. But he does not have to win it. Not yet anyway. There's a lot of people who didn't make it to the Super Bowl, therefore did not compete, therefore they never won. I believe it's more important, at least for one time, to make it, and then maybe you can appear and win it again. It's hard to get there anyway, right? Here's the rooting for Baltimore, right? Then you got Josh Allen. Arguably the man that's been deemed a freak of nature. Josh Allen is killing it this year. The least amount of turnovers I believe we've seen in his career. And also maybe the least talented roster that he's had, maybe outside of his second year. And I say least talented because it's a lot of people who may not know the names of some of their skill position players, whether it's running back, tight end, or wide receiver. But they getting it done. Now, their defense kind of suspect, and maybe they're just called upon to make one or two plays and get ahead. Give the ball back to the offense so they can get ahead. Offense looks tremendous. Over the last 2 games, they scored 90-plus points, I believe. But their defense also to give it up, I believe, 80 to 90 points. But Josh Allen is playing freaking fantastic. Anyway, those are the 3 players. Leadership, influence, narrative has to play a part in it. Real quick with Josh Allen, Stefon Diggs, a dynamic wide receiver, may be a problem child to some, definitely to me. He left, was traded. I can't remember which one. That's sad that I did not look that up. Anyway, Stefon Diggs is not there, a game breaker wide receiver, if you will. And this is what leads it to Josh Allen not having threats. Gabe Davis also a huge impact to what the Buffalo Bills had going on, but he's no longer there. So it is people that you may or may not know if you don't pay attention to certain teams and only pay attention to your own. And it's like Josh Allen is doing this with a cast of misfits, if you will. And they getting it done. Only team to beat the Chiefs this year, which means something. I didn't bring up the Chiefs because, yes, they are winning, but it does not look good. And if I would give an MVP candidate to anybody on that team, it would have to be the Chris Jones, the star-studded defensive lineman. Yes, lineman, because they will flip and switch him around anywhere to get the matchup, and he does impact the game. Arguably might be the reason why they won the last Super Bowl also. That's not a fan's perspective. That's actually facts. Moving right along. Should there be basic criteria for this award? Yes, there should be basic criteria. Simply because I am tired of it just going to a quarterback when there are plenty of defensive players that make an impact. I'll give you a few of them, right? I gave you Micah Parsons. Jalen Ramsey, back when he was with the Rams, was a very impactful player. Micah Parsons. Hate saying the name, but it is. It is what it is. The Saints have a few players, but my brother ain't here to name them. I know their names, but they don't deserve to be brought in the category right now. Jalen Carter of the Philadelphia Eagles. TJ Watt of the TJ Watt of the Pittsburgh Steelers, right? Like, there are so many players outside of the offensive side of the ball, also the quarterback outside the quarterback position, that deserve this award. And unfortunately, this is why it's deemed a quarterback award, because it's like it doesn't matter unless you're a quarterback, because although wins are not a quarterback stat, they certainly treat it like it's only the quarterback that can win or lose, and that's just not true. So you're probably asking yourself, well, what basic criteria would you have in mind? Stats matter, right? I said stats matter. So if you're on the defensive side, interceptions, sacks, tackles, right? Forced fumbles. A lot of things can happen on the defensive side of the ball where you can be impactful that should get you in the conversation, at least, of this award, and really heavy consideration. Outside of the quarterback on the offensive side of the ball, right? How many touchdowns you may have, right? How many receiving yards you may have. If you are that much of a game breaker and you're on track for breaking records, or as they call the triple crown with receivers, triple crown being most yards, most touchdowns, most reception, I think that got to be brought into conversation. And again, we talked about earlier in the episode the factors that go into it, but also, like, it's got to be more than just the quarterback is the only reason for the season. Having said that, when we get to the end of this episode, it's going to look a little biased right now, because it is quite a few things that quarterbacks are doing this year that really, really mean something. So yes, that's my basic criteria right there. Who are the leading candidates for the MVP race? Oh, I'm glad you asked. Leading candidates of the MVP race. Pull up my little pad right here. Josh Allen, Saquon Barkley, Lamar Jackson, and I threw Jared Goff in there because the Detroits are having a heck of a season. And those are the top 4 that I have right now. I would have gave 5, but that's getting into too much fluff, and I would have to explain. We'll start from the bottom. Jared Goff, 3,759 yards, 30 touchdowns, 10 interceptions. Lamar Jackson, I apparently put a wrong number here. That's crazy. Lamar Jackson, 3,580 yards, 34 touchdowns, 3 interceptions. Saquon Barkley, this is the running back here for y'all, 1,688 yards, 255 attempts on the year right now, 11 touchdowns. And then right now, who's probably leading it based off of impact stats and those wins, right? Josh Allen, 3,395 yards, 25 touchdowns, 5 interceptions. Again, my little scale that I gave you before, stats is on there, but they don't always play the heaviest factor. Impact to me is an important thing. Jared Goff, great numbers, stats-wise. People will say he threw 5 interceptions in one game. I watched that whole game like I do a lot of other games. I'm going to be honest with you. The 5 interceptions, he really only threw 3 of them. 2 of them, one of them was garbage, right? One of them, he threw a Hail Mary at the end of the first half. Come on, bro. Like, that don't really count. Anyway, he has good numbers, right? He's probably got the best numbers out of everybody. He's not higher in that category because of a couple losses that they had. And also, they deem it as other people are helping him on his team more than him helping them, right? Like, he has more going for him in terms of team-wise and skill position-wise and things like that. Now, if you look at their defense, he don't right now because they're hampered with injuries. It's another conversation for another day. Lamar Jackson. Lamar Jackson has had a couple of defining losses that probably voters think he shouldn't have had. Again, his numbers are better than the person who I said is leading. But also, impact-wise, he hadn't shown up sometimes. That game plan has sucked on the times he hadn't shown up because his stats look great. They got King Henry, Derrick Henry, for a reason. Run the freaking ball with him and do what you're supposed to do to get back to where you want to get back to and then overachieve. That's Lamar Jackson. Saquon Barkley is probably the second person, and I would love for him to win it just as the Heisman was between Ashton Jeanty and Travis Hunter. Travis Hunter got it. I'm not upset. I'm not mad about it. I saw it coming. But Ashton Jeanty getting over 2,000 yards with Boise State is a feat that I don't know if we're going to see from a running back because running backs are used so much differently than what they traditionally have been. Anyway, Saquon Barkley. If he breaks the rushing record held formerly by Eric Dickerson, we're trying to speak this into existence, and I don't know if it's going to happen because he got some work to do, right? The rushing record is 2,105 yards. If he breaks that rushing record, yes, he should get the MVP. I still don't know if he breaks it, if they would actually give it to him, but he's impacted his team, has great numbers. I know he's the leading running back in the league for yards. Not touchdowns, I don't believe, but he could be. But he impacts his team more than anything. When he is a game breaker, that means he's going to break wide open a play, whether it's for a touchdown or real close to a touchdown. His team is won. The last game against Pittsburgh Steelers, which is a much tougher defensive line and defensive team, he only had 61 yards. But they also threw the ball more because they had A.J. Brown calling out their quarterback, and you can tell that they forced it to him. You're messing up my man Saquon's stats, AJ. Like, get over yourself. Anyway, Saquon Barkley should be a heavy favorite, but the man that's number one right now, probably in everybody's eyes, Josh Allen, 3,395 yards, 25 touchdowns, 5 interceptions. And those stats may be from last week or previous weeks, so I have to make sure to confirm that again. I did look it up beforehand, but, you know, Josh Allen has a cast of misfit toys, as I said before. I won't say nobody's because that's insulting, but the general public may not know who he's throwing the ball to. Also, that defense does not look as good as it needs to. And Josh Allen has been responsible for like 10 touchdowns on his own in the last 2-3 weeks, I believe. Right? 6 touchdowns in one game, 3 passing, 3 running. ladies and gentlemen, that means something. As long as he doesn't screw the pooch, this is his award to win or lose. And I think he'll finally get that trophy, right? So that, ladies and gentlemen, is what I have for you when it comes to MVP, most valuable player in the NFL right now. What we have going on with Josh Allen, Saquon Barkley, Lamar Jackson, and possibly Jared Goff. But those top three I am sure about, and really with the order is probably right too. Offensive player of the year, if Josh Allen gets MVP, offensive player of the year is going to go to Saquon Barkley. That's what they're going to do. Offensive player of the year is going to be deemed something like a little bit less than MVP means something more. It's going to be interesting to see where it shakes off. But yes, I have told you what MVP stands for. I have told you how it should be defined. Should team success be factored into consideration for the MVP? Narratives and intangibles like leading, influence, voting, right? Should there be basic criteria? And also right here, right now in front of you, who are the leading candidates for this year MVP? That is what I have given you. I hope I have made it clear. Please get in the comments and tell me what you think, if I missed anything, so that I can address that. And once again, this is from a fan's perspective. I give it to you raw. I give it to you uncut. I give it to you from my insane little brain. And I appreciate y'all for tuning in. Man, listen, it's been fun. I think I went a little bit over. 15 to 30 minutes is all I'm trying to give you. I went rambling. I got to do a little bit better. But I'm going to go ahead and get y'all out of here. I thank y'all so much for tuning in. I'm the G in GNC Sports Talk. I'm Gary. And this is GNC Sports Talk, where we do it for the culture, by the culture, because we are the culture. You did. #1 sports podcast. Why? Because our mama said so. We'll see y'all real soon. Peace.